My name is Olivia, and I'm 32. Last Thursday, I watched my brother's face crumble as I fired him from the tech company our grandfather built. The same brother who spent 14 years calling me dead weight in front of our entire team. The same brother who told the board I was incompetent, despite my Stanford degree, and the 93% increase in revenue I brought to our West Coast division. I didn't scream when I handed him the termination notice. I didn't break down when he threatened to sue me for everything I was worth. I simply said, "The company needs stronger leadership," and watched as security escorted him from the building he thought would always be his kingdom. And now, 4 days later, he's begging for a second chance that will never come. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt underestimated by someone who should have believed in you. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. Growing up in Seattle, my brother James was always our grandfather's favorite. 5 years older than me, he was the charismatic one, the natural-born CEO, as Grandpa called him. Our grandfather, Walter Mercer, founded Mercer Technologies when James was just a toddler. The company started small, developing specialized software for local businesses, but grew into a regional powerhouse by the time I was in high school. From childhood, everyone assumed James would take over someday. "Your brother has leadership in his DNA," Grandpa would say while I sat right there at the dinner table. My parents never contradicted this narrative. Even when I won the national coding competition at 16, beating out seniors from across the country, my achievement was barely acknowledged. "That's nice, honey," Mom would say, before turning to ask James about his latest presentation. James never missed an opportunity to reinforce my supposed inadequacy. "Olivia just doesn't have the killer instinct," he would announce at family gatherings. "She's too soft for this business." Our grandfather would nod in agreement. I still remember my 18th birthday dinner, when James gave me a coffee mug that said "Team Player," while everyone laughed. "Someone has to do the grunt work," he said with a smirk. "Not everyone can be in charge." I didn't show how much it hurt. Instead, I focused on my education, earning my computer science degree with honors while James partied through business school, barely graduating. When Grandpa offered us both positions at Mercer Technologies after college, I hesitated. Why subject myself to more humiliation? But I knew I had something to prove to them, and to myself. I accepted an entry-level programming position, refusing any special treatment because of my last name. James, meanwhile, was immediately given a vice president title. "Experience isn't everything," Grandpa told the staff during James's introduction. "Leadership is in the blood." I put my head down and worked. 14-hour days, canceled vacations, missed holidays. I gave everything to the company while James took extended client meetings on his yacht. When Grandpa suffered a stroke 3 years later, the company's leadership fell into temporary disarray. That's when I saw my opportunity. Our West Coast division was struggling with outdated products and plummeting sales. I asked to transfer there, away from headquarters, away from James's shadow. "Sure, why not?" James said dismissively when I requested the move. "You can't possibly make things worse out there." He was wrong. I arrived in San Francisco with a detailed plan to revitalize our West Coast operations. The division had been neglected for years, treated as little more than a tax write-off. The office was depressing outdated equipment, demoralized staff, and a product line that hadn't been updated in 5 years. My first day, I gathered the 23 remaining employees. "Everything changes today," I told them. Several rolled their eyes. They'd heard promises before. They'd seen executives come and go. "I'm not there to make promises," I continued. "I'm here to work alongside you to rebuild this division." For the first 6 months, I arrived before everyone else and left after everyone had gone home. I learned every aspect of the operation. I sat with the developers and learned their frustrations. I joined sales calls to understand why our products weren't selling. Most importantly, I listened. The team had brilliant ideas that had been ignored for years. "Why bother?" one developer told me. "Headquarters never approves our proposals." I discovered that James had systematically denied every innovation request from our division. He'd redirected our budget to pet projects at headquarters. He'd taken credit for the few successful initiatives we'd managed to launch. During my second month, I found a memo from James to our CFO. "West Coast is a lost cause. Keep it running at minimum until we can write it off completely." I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I began documenting every budget cut, every denied request, every instance of sabotage. I created a separate innovation track that didn't require headquarters approval, using the minimal resources we had. Our team developed a cloud security solution that addressed a critical market need. We worked nights and weekends, fueled by determination and the growing belief that we could prove everyone wrong. 9 months after I arrived, our new product was ready. I didn't seek permission to launch it, I just did. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 3 major tech companies signed contracts within the first month. Revenue began to climb. Our little division, once the company joke, started generating positive press. When the quarterly numbers came in showing a 47% increase in revenue, I received a terse email from James. Congratulations. Headquarters will be taking over the security product line effective immediately. He was trying to steal our success. I'd anticipated this. Before launching, I'd quietly filed patents under a subsidiary structure. I'd created a structure that gave our division significant autonomy. I replied with the legal documentation showing he couldn't simply appropriate our work. His response was a phone call I'll never forget. "Who do you think you are?" he shouted. "Playing lawyer now?" "I'm protecting our division's work," I replied calmly. "Your division?" He laughed. "You're just keeping the seat warm, Olivia. Don't forget that." "The numbers speak for themselves, James." "Numbers can be manipulated," he said coldly. "Don't make me show you how." The threat was clear. That night, I called the one person I knew I could trust, my college roommate Zoe, now a corporate attorney specializing in tech. "He can't just take your product line," she assured me after reviewing the documents. "But be careful. If he's willing to threaten you, he's willing to do worse." "What should I do?" I asked. "Document everything," she advised, "and maybe start thinking about your long-term strategy. This isn't just about one product line anymore." She was right. This had become something much bigger. Over the next year, our West Coast division became Mercer Technologies' crown jewel. Our security product evolved into a comprehensive suite that attracted enterprise clients we'd never been able to reach before. Revenue increased by 93%. Our team grew from 23 to 78 people, all while James continued to dismiss my contributions. At the annual company retreat, I presented our division's remarkable turnaround. The board members were clearly impressed. Then James stood up. "While my sister's enthusiasm is commendable," he said with a condescending smile, "let's remember that her division is implementing strategies developed at headquarters. The success we're seeing is the result of the foundation I built." It was a blatant lie. I had the documentation to prove it, but confronting him publicly would only create a scene that would damage the company. So I smiled and said nothing. Later that evening, at the company dinner, I overheard James talking to a board member. "Olivia's division is doing well, but she's not leadership material," he said. "She's a good implementer, she follows directions well. But vision, strategy, that's not her strength." The board member nodded. "Still," he replied, "the numbers from West Coast are impressive." James laughed. "Give anyone enough resources and something will stick eventually. She's been lucky. But when Grandpa fully retires next year, we'll need real leadership, not luck." I slipped away before they saw me. That night, I couldn't sleep. After everything I'd accomplished, after proving myself over and over, nothing had changed. I was still dead weight in their eyes. I needed more information about the company's overall financial health. Officially, my access was limited to my division's data, but I had cultivated relationships with key people throughout the organization. Sarah from the finance department had been quietly helping me understand the broader company picture. "Most of this should be visible to division heads anyway," she said, slipping me quarterly reports during our monthly catch-up lunches. "James has been restricting normal information flow." Thomas, our senior systems architect who worked across divisions, provided insights into resource allocation patterns. "Your division creates innovations that somehow never get properly funded," he confirmed. "It's a pattern I've seen for years." Gradually, I built a comprehensive picture of the company's operations. What I found shocked me. While my division was thriving, the company overall was struggling. James had been hiding significant losses in his pet projects. He'd been manipulating reports to make his initiatives look successful. He'd been using my division's success to mask failures elsewhere. I dug deeper. Financial transfers that made no sense. Resources diverted from successful projects to failing ones. Client complaints buried and ignored. It wasn't just bad management. It looked like deliberate deception. I needed expert help to understand what I was seeing. I contacted two people, Zoe, my attorney friend, and Marcus Chen, a financial analyst who had consulted for my division. "I need your eyes on this," I told them, confidentially. 3 days later, we met in a private room at a restaurant far from any Mercer offices. Marcus reviewed the financial documents carefully. "This isn't just creative accounting," he finally said. "There are serious irregularities here. If I were an auditor, I'd be asking very uncomfortable questions." Zoe nodded grimly. "Olivia, if what we're seeing is accurate, James isn't just a bad manager. He's potentially engaged in financial misconduct that could threaten the company's stability." "What should I do?" I asked. "Go to Grandpa? The board?" "Not yet," Zoe cautioned. "We need more information and a strategy." "What kind of strategy?" I asked. Marcus and Zoe exchanged looks. "Have you ever considered," Marcus asked carefully, "that you might be better suited to lead Mercer Technologies than your brother?" The question stunned me. Me? Run the entire company? That's impossible, I said. Grandpa would never choose me over James. What if it wasn't Grandpa's choice? Zoe asked. I stared at her, not understanding. Mercer Technologies isn't just a family business anymore, she explained. It's a corporation with shareholders, many of them outside investors brought in during the expansion 5 years ago. Have you ever had that moment when you suddenly see a possibility that changes everything? Let me know in the comments if you've experienced a similar revelation. What we're suggesting, Marcus said, leaning forward, is that there might be a path for you to acquire enough shareholder support to change the company's leadership structure. The idea seemed outlandish. Impossible. I don't have that kind of money or influence, I protested. You have something more valuable, Zoe countered. Results. Proven success. And what we're finding in these financials suggests James has been misleading shareholders about the company's overall performance. Investors care about return on investment, Marcus added. Your division is delivering that. The rest of the company under James's leadership isn't. Zoe explained the current ownership structure. Our family held 38% of shares collectively, my grandfather with 25%, James with 10%, and I with a modest 3% inherited from my parents. The remaining 62% was distributed among various investors, with no single entity holding more than 8%. Most of these investors are passive, Marcus noted. They trust management and rarely intervene, but if presented with evidence of mismanagement affecting their investment, they outlined a bold, almost unthinkable plan. First, continue gathering evidence of financial mismanagement. Second, quietly approach key shareholders with this information. Third, form an investment group to consolidate voting power. It would take months, Zoe warned, and absolute secrecy. And substantial capital, Marcus added. You'd need to acquire enough shares to reach a controlling interest when combined with sympathetic investors. Where would that money come from? I asked. You've been saving and investing your bonuses for years, Marcus said. That's a start. There are also private equity firms that might back you if the case is strong enough. James would fight back, I said. Viciously, Zoe agreed, which is why everything must be perfectly legal and documented. I spent that night walking the San Francisco streets, considering the enormity of what they were proposing. Could I really challenge James for control of Mercer Technologies? Should I? This wasn't just about proving myself anymore. It was about saving the company my grandfather had built. By morning, I had made my decision. Let's do it, I told Zoe and Marcus. But we do it right. No shortcuts, no gray areas. Over the next 9 months, we built our case meticulously. Marcus analyzed years of financial reports, identifying patterns of misrepresentation. Zoe reviewed corporate governance documents, finding the pathways to potential change. I continued running my division, delivering even stronger results while secretly documenting everything that crossed my desk. We identified 3 key shareholders who collectively held 22% of the company. All had expressed concerns about overall performance in recent board meetings. All had praised my division's results. With Zoe's guidance, I prepared a detailed presentation showing the company's true financial position, the success of my leadership approach, and a comprehensive plan for turning around the struggling divisions. Mercer Technologies, although respected in the sector, had a market capitalization of approximately $120 million, a substantial value, but not inaccessible for a determined group of investors, especially considering that James's mismanagement had depressed the stock value by 30% over the past 2 years. Approaching the shareholders required extreme caution. Each signed strict confidentiality agreements before viewing our findings. Each meeting had to be held away from watchful eyes. The first shareholder, Dr. Eleanor Reed, a venture capitalist who had been an early investor, studied our presentation in silence. When she finished, she looked at me with new respect. I've had concerns for some time, she admitted, but I trusted Walter's judgment about James. This changes things. Similar meetings with the other 2 key shareholders yielded similar responses. Within weeks, we had formed an investment coalition. Next came the financial challenge. I had saved $1.4 million from my salary and bonuses over the years. Significant, but not enough. Dr. Reed introduced me to a private equity firm specializing in corporate restructuring. After extensive due diligence and multiple presentations, they agreed to back our effort with $2 million in capital, structured as a combination of loans and investment. Combined with my savings and the 3% I already owned, we began quietly acquiring shares on the open market. The process was painstakingly slow to avoid raising red flags, small purchases through different brokers, strategic timing to avoid price spikes, careful documentation of every transaction. But we still needed more support to challenge James's position. That's when an unexpected ally emerged. Robert Torres, a board member and my grandfather's oldest friend, requested a private meeting. "Your grandfather isn't well, Olivia," he told me gravely. "He's been covering for James for years because he can't bear to admit he made a mistake. But he knows. Deep down, he knows James isn't the right person to lead this company." "Has he said something?" I asked, surprised. "Not directly, but I've known Walter for 50 years. I see his disappointment, his worry. He's too proud to change course now, but that doesn't mean the course shouldn't be changed." Robert joined our coalition, bringing his 7% stake with him. By month 10 of our plan, we had consolidated enough voting power to make a move. Between acquired shares, my original holdings, and committed investor support, we controlled approximately 52% of voting shares. The process had been methodical and exhausting, but timing was crucial. James was planning a major reorganization that would essentially dismantle my division and distribute our team across the company. He had presented it as leveraging West Coast innovation company-wide, but the real purpose was clear: break up my success before it threatened him further. The reorganization would be finalized at the quarterly board meeting, just 2 weeks away. We needed to act before then. "Are you ready for this?" Zoe asked me the night before we executed our plan. "Once we start, there's no turning back." I thought about 14 years of dismissal and humiliation. I thought about my team, whose innovations had been repeatedly stolen or suppressed. I thought about the company my grandfather had built, now at risk because of James's mismanagement. "I'm ready," I said. The morning of the board meeting arrived with a strange sense of calm. I had spent years being underestimated, overlooked, dismissed. Today, that would end. I dressed carefully, a tailored navy suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back, professional, authoritative. The meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. at headquarters in Seattle. I arrived 30 minutes early, as did the members of our coalition. We had coordinated everything down to the minute. Our legal team waited in a conference room nearby. As board members filtered in, James nodded to me dismissively. "Nice of you to make the trip up from California, sis," he said. "Your division's about to undergo some exciting changes." "Yes," I replied calmly. "It certainly is." He mistook my composure for resignation. The meeting began with routine matters: approval of previous minutes, updates on ongoing projects. Then James stood to present his reorganization plan. "Before we move to that agenda item," I interrupted, "I'd like to address the board on a matter of urgent corporate governance." James frowned. "That's not on the agenda, Olivia." "I move to amend the agenda," Dr. Reed said immediately. "I second," Robert Torres added. The corporate secretary looked uncertain. "All in favor?" Dr. Reed pressed. A majority of hands rose. James's face tightened. "What is this?" he demanded. I opened my briefcase and distributed folders to each board member. These documents outlined serious concerns about the current management of Mercer Technologies, I began. They include evidence of financial misrepresentation, misallocation of company resources, and governance failures that threaten the company's stability and shareholder value. James lunged for the nearest folder. "This is slander!" he shouted after scanning the first page. "These allegations are completely false." "The financial records tell a different story," I continued calmly, "as do the witness statements from department heads across the company." Our grandfather, who had been largely silent in board meetings since his stroke, looked confused. "What is happening?" he asked Robert. Robert leaned over to speak quietly with him. Meanwhile, the other board members were reviewing the documents with growing concern. "If these allegations are accurate," one said, "this represents a serious breach of fiduciary duty." "They're not accurate," James insisted. "This is a hostile takeover attempt by my sister, who's always been jealous of my position." "I've consolidated these findings into a formal motion," I continued, ignoring his outburst. "The shareholders represented in this room, who collectively hold controlling interest in Mercer Technologies, move to restructure company leadership, effective immediately." The room erupted. James shouted about family loyalty. 2 board members began arguing about governance procedures. Our grandfather sat in stunned silence. The corporate secretary finally restored order. "Ms. Mercer has presented a motion with the support of shareholders representing 52% of voting shares," he announced. "According to our bylaws, the motion must be considered." What followed was not a simple vote, but the beginning of a complex corporate governance process. The board voted to establish a special committee to investigate the allegations. An emergency executive session was called for the following day. James was temporarily suspended from operational decisions pending investigation. I was named acting head of operations until the investigation concluded. As the meeting adjourned, James blocked my path. "You think you've won?" he hissed. "This isn't over. You can't run this company. You're nothing but dead weight, always have been, always will be." For the first time, I allowed myself a small smile. "We'll see about that," I replied. My hands trembled slightly as I gathered my papers. Not from fear, from the weight of what had just happened, from the responsibility I now carried. The next 7 days were a whirlwind of meetings, investigations, and strategic decisions. The special committee worked around the clock, interviewing department heads, reviewing financial records, and assessing the evidence I'd presented. What they found exceeded even my expectations. Financial misrepresentations dating back 3 years. Systematic suppression of innovation from multiple divisions, not just mine. Questionable transactions with vendors connected to James's personal investments. Meanwhile, I focused on stabilizing the company during the transition. I met with key clients to reassure them. I spoke with nervous employees to address rumors. I worked with the board to maintain operational continuity. James didn't go quietly. He hired a high-profile attorney. He reached out to allies within the company. He contacted major shareholders who weren't present at the meeting. His narrative was simple. I had manipulated data to stage a corporate coup. The company's stock price dropped 8% as news of the leadership crisis broke. Tech blogs ran headlines like "Family Feud threatens Mercer Technologies' future." Competitors began approaching our clients, suggesting they switch before things got worse. The pressure was immense, but I had prepared for this. We released a carefully worded statement to the markets. Mercer Technologies is conducting a standard governance review. Operations continue uninterrupted. The company remains committed to its clients and innovation roadmap. Internally, I was more direct. I gathered department heads for an emergency meeting. The company is at a crossroads, I told them. The investigation will show that James has been mismanaging our resources and misrepresenting our performance. But I need your help to ensure we don't lose ground during this transition. Some were skeptical. Others were openly loyal to James. Most were simply worried about their jobs. I understand your concerns, I continued. Change is unsettling. But I promise you this. Decisions going forward will be based on performance and contribution, not politics or personal loyalty. By day 5, the special committee had completed its preliminary investigation. They presented their findings to the full board in a closed session. The evidence was overwhelming. James had engaged in serious financial improprieties. He had systematically undermined profitable initiatives that didn't originate from his inner circle. He had misled the board about the company's true performance. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. James was removed as CEO, pending a full investigation of the financial allegations. I was appointed interim CEO, with a mandate to stabilize the company. The transition would be formalized over a 30-day period, with regular board oversight. James's closest allies on the board abstained from voting, but didn't block the decision. They could read the writing on the wall. The special committee issued recommendations for immediate governance reforms, expanded financial oversight, greater transparency in resource allocation, a flattened management structure that eliminated the silos James had created. The markets responded cautiously. Our stock recovered some of its losses. Analysts adopted a wait-and-see approach. Clients were reassured by the clear transition plan. On Thursday morning, exactly 1 week after the initial board meeting, I called James to my office, formerly our grandfather's office, briefly his. The HR director sat beside me, a formal termination notice between us. James arrived 20 minutes late, his usual confident swagger replaced by barely controlled anger. "Is this where you offer me some token position to save face?" he asked as he sat down. "VP of something meaningless? Because I'm thinking I might just take my talents elsewhere. I've had several calls from interested companies." I knew the truth about those calls. Several clients had contacted me directly to confirm rumors about management changes, mentioning that James had reached out claiming he was pursuing new opportunities. They weren't job offers at all, just his desperate attempts to maintain relationships he could leverage. I pushed the folder across the desk. "This is a termination notice effective immediately. Your company car will need to be returned today. Security will escort you to clear out your personal belongings." For a moment, he just stared at me. "You're firing me? Me? I am this company." "No, James, you almost destroyed this company. The board has approved this decision based on the evidence of misconduct, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty." He stood up so violently his chair crashed to the floor. "You think you've won? This isn't over? You'll fail, and when you do, don't come crawling back to me." I remained seated, my voice calm. "Security is waiting outside. Goodbye, James." As he was escorted out, shouting obscenities that echoed down the hallway, I felt no joy, only relief that the company could finally heal. The day after James's termination, I faced 2 immediate challenges: managing the public narrative around his departure and addressing the company's fractured culture. The PR team had prepared a carefully worded press release. Mercer Technologies announces leadership change following comprehensive governance review. James Mercer has stepped down as CEO. Olivia Mercer appointed interim CEO, effective immediately. Technically accurate, if incomplete. Financial analysts demanded more details. Industry blogs speculated wildly. Competitors seized the opportunity to spread rumors. I authorized our communications team to be more forthcoming with key stakeholders while maintaining appropriate confidentiality around the ongoing investigation. The board identified concerning patterns in our financial management and strategic direction. We told major clients in private briefings. The leadership change reflects our commitment to transparency and sustainable growth. This measured approach helped contain the initial market volatility. Our stock stabilized. Client cancellations remained minimal, but the internal dynamics were more complicated. James had cultivated fierce loyalty among a core group of executives. For years, advancement at Mercer had depended on personal relationships rather than performance. Many employees didn't know what to expect from me. I called an all-hands meeting for Monday morning. Every employee, whether in Seattle, San Francisco, or our smaller offices, would attend either in person or virtually. The auditorium at headquarters was packed. Faces looked back at me with a mixture of curiosity, concern, and cautious hope. For too long, Mercer Technologies has been divided, I began. Different standards for different teams. Different rules for different people. Today, that changes. Today, we become one company with one mission: innovation with integrity. I outlined the challenges we faced candidly. I acknowledged the uncertainty the leadership change had created. I presented my vision for rebuilding trust both within the company and with our clients. Some of you have thrived here, I continued. Your ideas were heard, your contributions valued. Others have struggled against barriers that never should have existed. Today, I promise you this. Every employee of Mercer Technologies will have the opportunity to contribute, to innovate, to excel. As I spoke, I could see hope dawning on many faces, but not all. In the back row, James's closest allies sat with arms crossed. I acknowledged their concerns directly. I understand that some of you had strong working relationships with James. I respect your loyalty. All I ask is that you give this new direction a chance, judging it on results rather than personalities. I ended with a commitment that would guide my leadership. Judge me not by my words today, but by my actions tomorrow, next week, next month. Judge me by the culture we build together, by the respect we show one another, by the results we achieve as one team. The applause that followed wasn't universal, but it was substantial. Over the next few weeks, several of James's closest allies resigned. I didn't try to stop them. A clean break was better than lingering resistance. What surprised me was how many of his apparent supporters approached me privately. I always respected your work in the West Coast Division, one senior executive told me, but speaking up meant risking James's displeasure. He created a culture of fear, another confided. People aligned with him for protection, not out of genuine respect. With each conversation, I gained deeper insight into the company James had actually been running, not the one he presented to the board. I used these insights to guide my restructuring efforts. We flattened the organization, eliminating unnecessary layers of management. We implemented transparent decision-making processes. We created cross-functional teams that broke down the silos James had built. Most importantly, we established clear metrics for evaluating performance metrics that applied equally to everyone, regardless of title or tenure. The transformation wasn't immediate or painless. Old habits died hard. Some initiatives failed and required adjustment. But gradually, a new culture began to emerge, one where ideas were valued regardless of their source, one where collaboration replaced competition, one where results mattered more than relationships. 6 weeks after taking over, I presented my first formal update to the board. The immediate crisis had been contained. Client retention remained stable. Initial financial reforms were showing promising results. The board voted to extend my interim appointment for 6 months, with quarterly reviews. Not a ringing endorsement, but a reasonable opportunity to prove myself. What do you think will happen next in this corporate transformation? Drop your predictions in the comments below. The following months brought both challenges and opportunities. As interim CEO, I inherited a company with deeper problems than even I had realized. The financial misrepresentations had masked serious operational inefficiencies and strategic missteps. Our core security platform needed significant updates to remain competitive. Key talent had left during James's tenure, creating critical skill gaps. Several major clients were considering not renewing their contracts. I approached these challenges methodically. First, assemble the right team. I promoted talented individuals who had been overlooked under James's leadership. I recruited strategic new hires from competitors. I retained an executive coach to help me navigate my new role effectively. Second, address the most urgent operational issues. We conducted a comprehensive product review to identify gaps and opportunities. We reallocated resources from underperforming initiatives to high-potential areas. We implemented rigorous financial controls to ensure transparency and accountability. Third, rebuild client relationships. I personally met with our 20 largest clients. I was candid about our past failures and clear about our path forward. I made specific commitments with measurable deliverables. The work was exhausting but exhilarating. For the first time, I could implement my vision without constant undermining. I could make decisions based on data rather than politics. I could build a culture that reflected my values: collaboration, innovation, integrity. Not everything went smoothly. Two of James's former allies who had remained with the company were quietly sabotaging initiatives. I discovered they were feeding confidential information to James, who was using it to approach our clients. After documenting the evidence, I terminated both executives. The message was clear. The old ways of operating were over. I also faced unexpected resistance from a board member who had initially supported the leadership change, but now questioned my strategic direction. These initiatives are too ambitious, he argued during a tense meeting. We need to focus on short-term stability before pursuing such aggressive innovation. Short-term thinking is what created these problems, I countered. We need to balance immediate stability with forward-looking investments. The debate continued for weeks, eventually requiring a formal board vote on my proposed strategy. I won by a narrow margin. The pressure to deliver results intensified. 3 months after becoming interim CEO, I received an unexpected visitor. My grandfather, now 81, had largely withdrawn from company matters since James's removal. He hadn't publicly supported either of us, maintaining a painful neutrality. When my assistant announced his arrival, my heart raced. He entered slowly, leaning on his cane. "You've been busy," he observed. Looking around the office, I had finally begun to make my own. "There's a lot to do," I replied cautiously. He nodded, lowering himself carefully into a chair. "The board has been keeping me informed," he said. "They tell me you're making progress." I waited, unsure where this was leading. "James came to see me yesterday," he continued. "He says you've exaggerated his mistakes. That given time, he could have fixed things." My stomach tightened. After everything, would my grandfather still take James's side? "The financial records speak for themselves," I said carefully, "as do the operational improvements we're already seeing." He was silent for a long moment, studying me with eyes that had once intimidated me. "I've been thinking about my role in all this," he finally said. "About the way I favored James, the way I dismissed your contributions." I held my breath. "I was wrong," he said simply, "and I'm sorry." The words I had waited decades to hear. "Why did you come today?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "To tell you that," he replied, "and to tell the board that I fully support your appointment as permanent CEO, not just interim." I stared at him, barely able to process his words. "You believe in me? Just like that?" "No," he said bluntly. "Not just like that. I believe the evidence I've seen over the past 3 months. I believe the board members who've been trying to tell me things I refused to hear for years. And I believe what I should have seen all along, that you have the vision, the integrity, and the skill to lead this company, and James doesn't." He reached across the desk and took my hand. "I was wrong, Olivia. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." My eyes filled with tears. After all these years, to finally hear those words. "Thank you," I whispered. With my grandfather's public endorsement, the board voted unanimously to make my CEO appointment permanent. The decision triggered a new wave of media attention and market analysis. Industry publications ran profiles with headlines like "Mercer Technologies' Unexpected Turnaround" and "How Olivia Mercer is Redefining Her Family's Company." I used the attention strategically. We announced an accelerated product roadmap that showcased our renewed innovation focus. We highlighted key leadership appointments that demonstrated our commitment to merit-based advancement. We released preliminary financial results that showed modest but significant improvements. The company's stock price began a steady climb. Analyst ratings shifted from hold to buy. Client renewals exceeded projections. But James wasn't going quietly. Though legally barred from directly interfering with company operations, he found creative ways to undermine me. He appeared at industry events, positioning himself as the true visionary of Mercer Technologies, who had been unfairly ousted. He maintained relationships with several clients, subtly questioning our new direction. He gave interviews suggesting the company's recovery was temporary, built on initiatives he had started. I refused to engage in a public battle. Instead, I let our results speak for themselves. 6 months after becoming permanent CEO, I presented our quarterly results to the board. Revenue had increased by 11%, modest compared to my West Coast division's previous growth, but significant for a company our size undergoing major restructuring. Employee retention had improved by 19%. Client satisfaction scores showed steady improvement. The board members who had been skeptical of my leadership began to come around. Even the director who had opposed my strategic plan acknowledged the positive trends. "You're proving me wrong," he said after a particularly successful presentation, "and I'm glad of it." My grandfather, who attended board meetings less frequently now due to his health, seemed genuinely proud. "You've exceeded my expectations," he told me after one meeting. "You've become the leader I always hoped James would be." The irony of his statement wasn't lost on me, but I didn't dwell on it. I was too busy leading the company forward. One Tuesday morning, almost 7 months after the leadership change, my assistant interrupted a meeting. "James is here," she said tensely. "He's demanding to see you." I excused myself from the meeting and went to the reception area. James stood there, looking less polished than I remembered. His suit was slightly rumpled. His eyes had a desperate edge. "We need to talk," he said, loud enough for nearby employees to hear. "My office," I replied quietly. Once inside with the door closed, he dropped the pretense of confidence. "I need a job," he said bluntly. I stared at him, stunned by his audacity. "You're asking me for a job? After everything you did?" "The severance is running out," he admitted. "No one in the industry will hire me. The non-disparagement agreement means I can't even explain my side of the story." "Your side?" I repeated incredulously. "You mean the side where you mismanaged the company, lied about performance, and used me as a scapegoat for your failures?" "I made mistakes," he conceded reluctantly. "But I'm still a Mercer. This is still our family's company." "This is a publicly traded corporation," I corrected him, "with shareholders who expect ethical leadership and profitable growth, neither of which you provided. So that's it? You've had your revenge and now you're done with me?" "This was never about revenge, James. It was about saving the company you were destroying." He laughed bitterly. "Always the perfect Olivia. Never a selfish motive, never a vindictive thought." "I'm not perfect," I said, "but I am the CEO of this company. And no, I won't be hiring you." After James left, I sat alone in my office, disturbed by the encounter. Despite everything he had done, he was still my brother, and he was clearly struggling. I called our grandfather that evening. "James came to see me today," I told him. "He asked for a job." The long silence that followed told me Grandpa wasn't surprised. "He came to me first," he finally admitted. "I told him he needed to make amends with you." "That's not what he did," I said. "He demanded a position, as if it were his right." "Some lessons take longer to learn than others," Grandpa sighed. "James has never faced consequences before. And now? Now he's living in his condo in Bellevue. The vacation house in Aspen had to be sold. The yacht, too. He's been reaching out to old contacts, but your documentation of his mismanagement was thorough." I felt a twinge of guilt, quickly replaced by resolve. "He did this to himself," I said. "Yes," Grandpa agreed, "but he's still family." Over the next year, Mercer Technologies completed its transformation from a troubled, divisive company into a cohesive, forward-looking organization. The changes weren't just structural or financial, they were cultural, reaching into every aspect of how we operated. We eliminated the arbitrary distinctions between divisions that James had used to pit teams against each other. We implemented transparent decision-making processes that allowed ideas to be evaluated on merit rather than politics. We created career paths based on contribution rather than connections. The results exceeded even my optimistic projections. Revenue increased by 23% year over year. Employee satisfaction scores reached their highest levels in company history. Our stock price rose 41% from its low point during the leadership crisis. Industry analysts who had once dismissed us as a middling regional player now cited us as an innovation leader. But success brought new challenges. A major competitor, Axiom Technologies, announced they were looking to acquire companies that complemented their enterprise solutions. Our board immediately recognized both opportunity and threat. Mercer's security products would be valuable to Axiom, but an acquisition would mean the end of our independence. "We need to position ourselves carefully," I told the board, "either as too valuable to acquire or too valuable to operate independently." We developed a dual strategy. First, accelerate our most innovative projects to demonstrate our value as an independent entity. Second, prepare for acquisition talks with terms that would protect our employees and core technologies. The board appointed a special committee to oversee these preparations, with me leading the independent strategy, while our CFO developed potential acquisition scenarios. For the next 3 months, I worked with renewed intensity. We fast-tracked our most promising security platform. We strengthened relationships with key clients. We recruited top talent from competitors. The special committee met weekly to assess our position. Axiom has approached 3 companies similar to ours, our market intelligence team reported. They've acquired one and are in advanced talks with another. "What makes us different?" I asked. "Our security integration capabilities," the CTO explained. No one else has successfully bridged the gap between cloud and on-premises security like we have. Then that's our leverage, I decided. We doubled down on what makes us unique. We invested heavily in our integration platform. We accelerated our development timeline. We targeted clients who needed exactly what we offered. By month 4, our strategy was showing results. Our newest platform was gaining traction rapidly. Our valuation had increased by 23%. Axiom had noticed. Their CEO reached out directly. "We should talk," the email said simply. The board advised caution, but authorized preliminary discussions. The first meeting was at a neutral location, a conference room in a downtown law firm. Axiom's team arrived with confidence bordering on arrogance. "We've been watching Mercer with interest," their CEO began. "You've made impressive changes since taking over." "Thank you," I replied. "We're proud of what we've accomplished. Your security integration platform in particular has caught our attention. It would fit well within our enterprise offering." The implication was clear. They wanted our technology, not necessarily our company. "Our platform is the result of our unique company culture and development approach," I explained. "It doesn't exist in isolation." The conversation continued politely, but with underlying tension. They wanted to explore synergies. We emphasized our value as an independent entity. No concrete proposals were made, but their interest was undeniable. As we left the meeting, our CFO leaned over. "They'll make an offer within 2 weeks," he predicted. "Probably 15–20% below our actual value." He was right. 11 days later, Axiom presented a formal acquisition offer. The price was 18% below our current market valuation. The terms would have dissolved our company into their larger structure. The board rejected it unanimously. Axiom returned with a second offer. Better financially, but still inadequate. Still structured to absorb rather than preserve what made us special. We rejected that one too. Then came the pressure tactics. Rumors about our financial stability began circulating. A key client was suddenly approached with an aggressive discount from Axiom. A talented engineer received a recruiting call offering double her current salary. I recognized the playbook immediately. It was exactly how James had operated. I called an emergency board meeting. "They're trying to destabilize us to drive down our value," I explained. "We need to respond decisively." We launched a 3-part strategy. First, complete transparency with our employees about the acquisition attempts. Second, accelerated bonuses to key personnel to reinforce their value to us. Third, a major announcement of our next-generation platform ahead of schedule. The strategy worked. Our stock price stabilized. Employee retention remained strong. Clients expressed renewed confidence in our direction, but we needed a longer-term solution to fully counter Axiom's approach. After careful consideration, we pursued a strategic partnership with SecurityNet, a larger firm with complementary products but different market focus. Our partnership wasn't merely defensive, it created genuine technical and business advantages. We integrated critical components of our system with SecurityNet's infrastructure, establishing both technical interoperability and contractual relationships that would make any acquisition attempt significantly more complex and expensive. We structured the agreement to maintain our independence while creating enough interdependence to deter hostile takeovers. The partnership included joint development projects, cross-licensing of key technologies, and coordinated market approaches, all designed to enhance our value while making us more difficult to absorb. The announcement of our partnership sent a clear message to the market. Mercer Technologies was not for sale, at least not on terms dictated by others. Axiom's CEO requested another meeting, this time one-on-one. "You're making this unnecessarily difficult," he said when we met at a downtown restaurant. "We're offering a good price for a mid-sized company in a competitive market. We're offering a revolutionary approach to enterprise security," I countered. "And we're growing at twice the industry average. Growth can be fleeting," he warned. "Markets change, technologies evolve. Being part of Axiom would provide stability. Being consumed by Axiom would destroy what makes us valuable in the first place," I replied. His expression hardened. "I understand you've worked hard to step out of your brother's shadow," he said, his tone suddenly personal. "But sometimes the smart play is knowing when to partner rather than compete." The comment stunned me. How did he know about James? Then I realized. "You've been talking to my brother," I said, the pieces falling into place. He didn't deny it. "James has provided some context about Mercer's internal dynamics. He feels the company might benefit from experienced leadership within a larger organization." Anger flashed through me. James was still trying to undermine me, now through Axiom. "My brother no longer has any connection to Mercer Technologies," I said coldly, "and this conversation is over." After discovering James's involvement with Axiom, I had a critical decision to make. His non-disparagement agreement explicitly prohibited him from advising competitors about Mercer's operations or management. I could pursue legal action that would likely derail his attempts to rebuild his career. Instead, I chose a different approach. Rather than targeting James directly, we leveraged our partnership with SecurityNet to further solidify our market position. We announced an expanded collaboration that included joint product development and go-to-market strategies, effectively creating a technical and business ecosystem that made our acquisition far less attractive. Our partnership wasn't just a defensive move, it genuinely enhanced our products, combining SecurityNet's enterprise scale with our integration innovation. We developed combined solutions that addressed client needs in ways neither company could achieve alone. The partnership gave us access to larger clients while maintaining our independence and distinctive approach. The market responded enthusiastically. Our stock price jumped 12% overnight. Axiom's acquisition strategy suddenly looked less viable. 3 days later, I received a text from James. "I know what you did, and why you didn't come after me legally. Thank you." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. He knew I could have destroyed his fresh start, but chose not to. And I knew he would not risk crossing me again. 2 years after taking control of Mercer Technologies, I stood on stage at the industry's largest conference, accepting the Innovation Leadership Award. Our security integration platform had revolutionized how enterprises approach their security infrastructure, and the market had noticed. "This award belongs to every member of the Mercer team," I told the audience. "Innovation isn't born from a single mind, but from a culture that values every contribution." As I left the stage, I spotted a familiar face in the crowd. James. He nodded slightly, then disappeared into the crowd before I could approach him. Later that evening, at the reception, he reappeared. "Congratulations," he said, keeping a respectful distance. "The award is well-deserved." "Thank you," I replied, surprised by his presence. "I thought you were in Chicago." "I am. Just here for the conference. My new role involves security integration, so—" He gestured vaguely at the event around us. "How is it going?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Better than I expected," he admitted. "Different. I'm not the CEO, obviously, but I'm doing good work. Learning a lot." There was a humility in his tone I'd never heard before. "I'm glad," I said, and meant it. And we stood awkwardly for a moment. "I owe you an apology," he finally said. "A real one, not the half-hearted acknowledgement I gave you before. I was wrong about you. I was wrong to treat you the way I did all those years. And I was wrong to try to interfere with Axiom." I studied his face, looking for the manipulation I'd grown so accustomed to detecting. I didn't see it. "What changed?" I asked. "Perspective," he said simply. "In Chicago, no one cares that I'm a Mercer. They judge me on my work, my ideas, my contributions. It's clarifying. It's how the rest of us have always lived," I pointed out. He winced. "I deserved that, but I am trying to change." Another awkward silence fell between us. "Grandpa's health is declining," I said, changing the subject. "He's 83 now. You should visit while you can." "I've been calling him weekly," James said. "But you're right. I'll come to Seattle next month." We parted with a tentative truce established. Not friendship, certainly not the siblinghood we should have had, but at least the hostility had faded. The following month brought both challenges and opportunities. A critical security vulnerability was discovered in a widely used protocol that affected our platform. Our team worked around the clock to develop and deploy a fix before any clients were compromised. At the same time, interest in our company reached new heights. Investors were eager to support our expansion. Talented engineers sought to join our team. Potential clients reached out daily. We were no longer the family company my grandfather had built. We were becoming something bigger, more influential. The responsibility weighed on me. Every decision affected hundreds of employees and thousands of clients. But I had grown into the role in ways I once couldn't have imagined. I assembled a leadership team that complemented my strengths. I established governance structures that ensured transparency and accountability. I created pathways for innovation that didn't rely on any single person's vision. When James visited Seattle as promised, he asked to see the company. After some consideration, I agreed. He walked through our headquarters with visible emotion. "It's so different," he remarked as I showed him the collaborative spaces that had replaced the hierarchical structure he had enforced. "Better, more vibrant." We ended in my office once our grandfather's, then briefly his. "Do you ever think about how differently things might have turned out?" he asked, looking around at the space I had finally redecorated to reflect my leadership style. "Sometimes," I admitted. "If you had seen me as an ally instead of a threat, if I had stood up for myself sooner, if Grandpa had recognized what was happening." "I was scared," he said suddenly. "Terrified, actually. I always knew I wasn't what Grandpa thought I was. I was afraid you would expose that. So I tried to keep you down before you could rise up." The admission stunned me. All those years, I had thought he saw me as insignificant. In reality, he had seen my potential and feared it. "We can't change the past," I said finally, "but we can choose a different future." He nodded, accepting the limited olive branch for what it was. Before he left Seattle, James visited our grandfather one last time. I wasn't present for their conversation, but Grandpa called me that evening, his voice stronger than it had been in months. James told me everything, he said. Not just about the company, about how he treated you all those years, about how I enabled it. Grandpa, you don't need to— Yes, I do, he interrupted. I failed you, Olivia. I saw what I wanted to see in James, and I refused to see what was right in front of me in you. I'm sorry. Tears filled my eyes. Thank you, I whispered. 2 weeks later, he passed away peacefully in his sleep. The funeral was small, with only family and close friends. James flew in from Chicago. We stood side by side at the cemetery, not quite together, not quite apart. According to Grandpa's updated will, his shares in the company were divided equally between James and me, with the condition that neither of us could sell for at least 5 years. He wanted to ensure the company's stability, even after his departure. So I'll be a shareholder again, James said slowly as we walked back to the cars, but without operational involvement. That's right. I can live with that, he decided. It's more than I deserve. As we reached our separate cars, he hesitated. For what it's worth, Olivia, you're a better CEO than I ever would have been. The company is lucky to have you. Coming from him, it was an extraordinary admission. Thank you, I said simply. We didn't embrace or make false promises about regular family dinners, but something had shifted. The wound hadn't healed, but perhaps it had begun to scar over. That was enough for now. 5 years have passed since I became CEO of Mercer Technologies. What began as a desperate move to save our family company has evolved into a transformative journey, not just for the business, but for me personally. The company today bears little resemblance to what it was under James's leadership. We've grown from a regional player to an international security leader. Our workforce has tripled. Our stock price has increased by 148% from its low point during the leadership crisis. Most importantly, we've built a culture of innovation, respect, and collaboration that attracts the best talent in the industry. I no longer need to prove myself. My leadership speaks for itself. The board that once questioned whether I could handle the role now seeks my guidance on long-term strategy. Clients who once insisted on speaking with someone in charge now specifically request my involvement in major decisions. Competitors who dismissed us as a minor player now monitor our every move. As for James, we've established a cautious, distant relationship. He remains in Chicago, where he's built a respectable career. He attends the annual shareholders meeting but never attempts to influence company decisions. When we interact, which is rarely, we maintain a polite, professional demeanor. Last month, he emailed me about a charity event his company was sponsoring. I've recommended Mercer as a potential corporate sponsor, he wrote. No pressure, but they do good work. I had our community engagement team evaluate the opportunity. It was legitimate and aligned with our philanthropic goals. We became a silver-level sponsor. James sent a brief thank you note. I replied with an equally brief acknowledgement. We'll never be close. Too much history lies between us. But we found a way to coexist, to acknowledge our shared heritage without reopening old wounds. 3 months ago, I made a decision I'd been considering for some time. I promoted Maya Chen, the assistant who had provided crucial evidence against James years ago, to chief of staff. You've earned this, I told her during the meeting where I offered the position. Your integrity and judgment have been invaluable to this company. Thank you, she said, clearly emotional. That means a lot, especially coming from you. From me? I asked, curious about her phrasing. You showed all of us what's possible, she explained. When you took over after years of being underestimated and dismissed, you didn't just survive, you transformed the company. You've created opportunities for everyone based on merit, not politics or connections. Her words stayed with me long after the meeting ended. I had been so focused on the business metrics, growth, profit, market share, that I hadn't fully appreciated the cultural impact of our transformation. The following week, I instituted a new mentorship program specifically designed to identify and develop overlooked talent within the company. The Mercer Pathways program will ensure that no valuable contributor goes unrecognized, I announced at the launch, because innovation can come from anywhere, and leadership takes many forms. The program was immediately oversubscribed. As I write this from my office overlooking Seattle, I'm reflecting on the journey that brought me here. I think about the young woman who once sat silently at family dinners, listening to her brother being praised while her achievements were ignored. I think about the division head who documented every success and failure, building her case meticulously for a confrontation she never expected to have. I think about the interim CEO who walked into headquarters that first day, trembling inside but determined not to show it. None of those versions of me could have imagined where I am today, not just running the company, but reinventing it. Not just surviving my brother's attempts to undermine me, but thriving beyond anything he could have accomplished. Not just proving my worth, but creating a legacy that will outlast me. The most important lesson I've learned isn't about business strategy or financial management, though those skills have been essential. It's about recognizing your own value, especially when others fail to see it. It's about persisting in the face of doubt and dismissal. It's about having the courage to rewrite the rules of a game that was rigged against you from the start. James once called me dead weight. Now he finds himself looking up at the company I've built, the leader I've become. The ultimate justice isn't that I fired him, it's that I succeeded where he failed. It's that I transformed the company in ways he never could have imagined. It's that I proved, definitively and irrevocably, that I was never the problem. I am Olivia Mercer, CEO of Mercer Technologies, and I am nobody's dead weight. If this story resonated with you, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories about overcoming underestimation and finding your true worth. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below.